What was Egypt like? Herodotus, Greek historian, has called Egypt the gift of the Nile. Do any of you guys ever do Google Maps and things? Have you ever done Google Maps and looked at your house and things? If you ever get on Google Maps, do Egypt. You get on Google Maps, do Egypt. And what you find in Egypt is, what color dominates that whole area? Kind of like a sandy brown, because what goes on for like 1,000 miles? More than that. Yeah, you got desert for like 2,000 miles and stuff on the side. And what'll happen is you do your Google Maps, you'll find that there's a ribbon of green. It'll be all brown, sandy brown, and there'll be a little ribbon of green coming down, and that's the what? That's the Nile River, okay? They basically irrigate out of the Nile River, and you'll see a little strip of green. In other words, Egypt is the gift of the Nile. You take the Nile away, where is Egypt? Nowhere. Egypt doesn't exist. That's where the water and life comes from the river there and stuff, so that's a big thing. Now, okay, first of all, number one, chill out. I don't want you to know this, okay? Let me say, I don't want you to know this. I'm just going to run through. This is all of Egyptian history. This is a Hildebrandt summary of Egyptian history. Are some of you taking the real thing off of Professor David Wick in Western Civilization and stuff? Okay, Wick is phenomenal. You're getting some of the best ancient Near Eastern teaching you can find anywhere. I've sat in his class. I got what you guys are getting in college. I had graduate courses that aren't as good as what Dr. Wick does. I mean, the guy's a phenomenal teacher and stuff like that. Western Civilization and Dr. Dave Wick and stuff. He's, by the way, it always disturbed me when I sit in the back of his class and I was in there, and he'd tell the funniest jokes, and the students would just sit there and things, and I'm roaring, and it's just, he's got a real dry sense of humor, but he's telling jokes half the time in his class, man. Guy is really humorous, but you got to kind of have you got to get tuned into it. But anyways, this is Hildebrandt's Perverted. I'm going to do all of Egyptian history on one screen, okay? That's all right. Now, I just want you to get a sense of the flow of Egyptian history, okay? You have the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. These are the three kingdoms of Egypt. The Old Kingdom starts back at about 2700 BC, runs about 21, and this is when the pyramids were built. When is Abraham? What's our date for Abraham? 2000. Question, were the pyramids already there? When Abraham went to Egypt, were the pyramids already there? Yeah. Abraham saw the pyramids, okay? The pyramids were there already before Abraham's time, about 2700, 21 here. This is the great building. They built all these massive things. The first intermediate period, these intermediate periods are going to be periods of chaos, okay? In other words, this is when the pharaohs rule and dominate. The intermediate periods are when there's chaos. There's like foreigners come in and beat up the native Egyptians, and there's chaos. So the first intermediate period, is this largely when Abraham was? So Abraham goes down, is Egypt strong or weak? Yeah, there's chaos going down there. So does he fit in, like foreigners coming in? Does Abraham fit in with that? Yeah, so here's first intermediate period with Abraham. Then you've got what's called the Middle Kingdom. And the Middle Kingdom is, that's what I work with a lot with. I do a lot of wisdom literature stuff, the wisdom of Amenopi, the wisdom of various people. It comes, a lot of it, arts and literature from about 1991. Can some of you remember 1991? It was 1991 to 1670 BC. And so anyways, this is the period of literature, and this is a lot of wisdom literature coming out of Egypt and things from this literary period. This is the building period, the literary period. Then you have a second intermediate period. These dates, that's when Israel is in Egypt. This is when Israel is in Egypt during the second intermediate period. A lot of people said the Hyksos are there, and this Hyksos group comes in and creates chaos. Israel's in there. Does anybody remember when it says the Pharaoh that knew not Joseph? In other words, Joseph was favored by the one Pharaoh, but then there arose a Pharaoh who knew not Joseph. Some people think that that's the Hyksos. When the Hyksos took over, they didn't know the Jews from anybody, and so then they enslaved the Jews. They enslaved them. And so this is the second intermediate period. The New Kingdom is a period of expansion, and this is when Egypt kind of expanded. And Egypt, what's the problem with Egypt? Is Egypt a very expansionist culture? No. Egypt was a very provincial. Long as they had their Nile, were they kind of happy? They were like the breadbasket of the ancient world. They provided wheat and stuff, food for everybody else. And they didn't go out, saying they weren't conquerors going out all the time and things. They were kind of like, I think about China. Okay, is China a really big, strong country? You know, and could dominate a bunch of areas, but does China kind of like, you know what I'm saying, they don't go out dominating other peoples. They're kind of more provincial and stuff. They work within their own society and things. And Egypt's kind of like that. They weren't expansionistic except in this period when they did go up and went up Mesopotamia and things like that. But normally they were not that way. And then finally, after the New Kingdom period of expansion, then there's this, what they call the third intermediate period, and this is down around the time of David and Solomon, which is really interesting. So during the time of David and Solomon, is Egypt strong or weak? Okay, expansion kingdom, David is after this. Egypt is weak. David and Solomon come to power and their kingdom expands because Egypt is weak. By the way, at the same time, Mesopotamia was weak. So David and Solomon will flourish because both Mesopotamia and Egypt were weak at that time, and David and Solomon will flourish. So kind of a flow for Egypt. First, the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom with these intermediate periods of chaos in between. Now, a little bit of a map, okay? Here's a map. We see the Salt Sea up there, the Dead Sea. You come down here, you've got the Gulf of Aqaba, named after the city of Aqaba in Jordan up here, the Gulf of Aqaba. This is the Red Sea down here. This is the Gulf of Suez. The Gulf of Suez, what city is named right here? Okay, this Gulf of Suez is named Suez after the city of Suez that's here. The Gulf of Aqaba is named after the city here that's called Aqaba in Jordan. They call it Elad on the Israeli side. And this is then the Sinai Peninsula. Can you see that it's a peninsula here? Sinai Peninsula. This peninsula is a huge plate here, and it actually has, this part of it here has lifted up. This part here has lifted up, and then boom, you get this drop into the Red Sea. Let me just explain this. I've actually been swimming. The swimming here, if I say the name Jacques Cousteau, does that mean anything anymore? This guy was really into swimming and stuff. He says some of the most beautiful coral reefs in the world are found along here, and I would agree with it. I don't have his experience, but I've swum around here. Down here, let me just tell you about the Ras Muhammad. Okay, so you're down at the very tip of this thing, and you're going to go swimming. So you walk out, and the water is this deep. And I was raised in the Niagara River, so I'm kind of like a fish, and so the water doesn't scare me. I like swimming and stuff. So I'm walking out, it's about this deep, it's about this deep, it's about this deep, and you take one step, and the water is 600 feet deep. Yeah. Remember how I told you that platform lifted up? When the platform lifted up, boom, it shattered down, and it's a 600-foot drop. Is it really freaky then? So what happens is you're in the water, so you float like this, and you're out now, and it's 600 feet deep. Question, you look down, what's down there?
Black.
Yeah, it just goes it's like, holy cow, it's really deep, you know? It's like I can't see the bottom. I mean, I can't even see close to the bottom in this thing, and who knows. Anyways, but then what happens is you turn around and you look at this cliff that you just came off of, and that there'll be all these I don't know what the official name is and stuff like that. But it's like barnacle things that are they do all this thing, and then these tropical fish that are really colorful fish will be swimming out in between these corals and these barnacles and stuff, and you can just float there and just watch these fish. It's really, really cool and things. Now you say, yeah, you're watching these fish and a shark comes up behind you. I didn't see any sharks, but they have them there. But it's just, anyways, we're watching these animals. Really cool. And then what happens is then you just float back up, and you get back on the thing, and it's knee deep and things. And so it's really some really fun things there. But anyways, this is Sinai. A lot of people put Mount Sinai down here. And anyways, if you ever get it, actually, I was going to tell you guys, if you ever get a chance, get down there and stuff. But the question, is this dangerous territory now? Yeah, the Sharm el-Sheikh and stuff, they blow up stuff down there and stuff. You got to be really careful. So when I went, it was back after the Civil War and everything. There were barely any roads. I'm serious, there were barely any roads back there and stuff. Now it's all built up and they blow up stuff. Sharm el-Sheikh's been blown up 2 or 3 times. A beautiful beach. Oh man, it's right here. Okay, let's get out of there. Okay, so this is Sinai and things. They come across. This is the land of Goshen. This is Memphis. I always say Memphis because that's where the king's buried. But anyways, okay, so here we have, this is the Nile, and this is the Nile Delta up here. You were familiar with it. But this land of Goshen is going to be important for us. Who's going to be in the land of Goshen? The Hebrew slaves. Okay, now why did they put them in the land? By the way, even in America, do we have places called Goshen? Has anybody ever heard of Goshen College and things? We name things after this Goshen. This is where the Jews settled. Why did the Egyptians settle them there? You got a couple things going. The Jewish people, question, what is their trade by nature? They're shepherds. What are the people that live along the Nile, what are they? Farmers. Question, do shepherds and farmers get along real well? What happens with the shepherds when the shepherd brings a sheep over to your house and you've got a farm? What does your sheep do? Eats the farm, okay? It's like, in America, didn't we have the cattlemen versus the farmers in America? A guy brings his cow in and eats all your cornfield, you're done, So they had the same tension there. And so basically it says, hey, you guys are shepherds, stay out here and leave our farmlands alone. Again, Egypt was the breadbasket of the ancient world. There's a lot of wheat and stuff grown here. So they put them out here. Now the other reason why they're out there is when Egypt goes to get attacked, how can Egypt get attacked? They seem to be more provincial. Can Egypt get attacked from over here? All the Libyans come over and they say, hey, we want to beat up on Mubarak and stuff. So they come across the desert. Question, are you going to go across this desert to attack from the west? No, it's 1,000 miles, man. Even a 2-humped camel can't make that one. So you're not going to come in this way. Nobody's going to attack you from this direction from the west. Nobody's going to attack you. You say, well, maybe somebody will attack from the south. If they try floating down the Nile River, you say, man, that would be some great whitewater rafting and things. Yeah, you just float down in the current. What's the problem? It's 7 places here. You've got what? Cataracts, okay? Now, that may be fun in a whitewater rafting boat, but when you've got an army and stuff, that's no good. So basically, they're cut off from the south by the cataracts protect them. You see what I'm saying? The cataracts coming down, these cataracts, these water rapids and stuff, protect them from the south. Is anybody going to come attack them from the north? Go cross the whole Mediterranean Sea to attack Egypt? Is that a long trip across the Mediterranean? Are you going to lose boats and men and who knows what you're going to lose? So nobody, and by the way, you put them up here, they get this delta area. What happens when they land in a swampland? Is anybody familiar with Williamsburg? Was it Williamsburg in Virginia? You put them in a swamp, what happens? There's mosquitoes. What do mosquitoes do to people? They sting them and stuff. Question, when the mosquitoes in there, and with malaria and stuff, question, do the mosquitoes kill people? Yeah, Williamsburg, okay? 1/3 of people die. Okay, so therefore, what is the only direction Egypt can be attacked from? Right down through here. Boom. So where are you going to put the Jews? Put them here. That way, when you're attacked from here, who will your attackers have to kill first? The Jews. So the Jews become a buffer zone. The Jews become a buffer zone, so Israel gets protection then. The Jews can be killed before they actually face the real Egyptians. So the land of Goshen then is located here, and we'll see more about the land of Goshen later. But that's just kind of a brief layout of some of the things. We'll come back to that later.